So my name's Erin. We've met online briefly a few times. I'm a statistician, but I work for the CDC Foundation, and but placed with Remtech. Okay. So ArcGIS, it was invented in 1999 by a company called Esri, and it quickly became the premier mapping system. People were using like CAD before, and now this is very much the premier and preferred system for most cartographers. And there's a lot of ArcGIS packages available, too many for me to even understand. So I got a name, Jason Langley, who is at Esri and will do tribal government support. I've reached out to Jason, but I haven't heard back, and it's been a couple days, so I might talk to Esri again and try to get someone else who can help all of us. So here's how it works. You have to think of GIS in this way, being like a layered cake or pancake stacked together. You start with a base map, and those are usually pretty detailed maps of the area that you're interested in. And then you start to add in layers of other things that you're interested in. For instance, COVID cases. Those would be points. Raster layers, which are additional maps. Sometimes people are interested in studying wetlands on top of like a regular cartographic map to pick up things like elevation. All of a sudden you can look at not just wetlands, floodplains, but then you have an idea of the elevation, and if the stream were to rise so many feet, you'd know where the flooding is going to be. You can also look at routes. So those are lines, connected points. There's just so much that you can do, and I wanted to throw this word out here, geocoding. So when the program geocodes, it takes data like X and Y coordinates, or even addresses like street addresses, and links them to whatever map that you've already chosen. And it's just a neat service. You can take almost any sort of data, including COVID cases, and if you have an address for the person, you can add them to your map. The program is capable of doing that. And that's what links all the layers together, is geocoding. It tells the computer figures out how these different layers are linked. And when you're looking at the program, you can look at all the layers at once, or you can look at just one at a time. And the types of layers, oh, so many, anything you can think of. And things that might be interesting to governments are property ownership boundaries, tribal boundaries. If your emergency services are in good locations, where crimes are happening. My husband uses it a lot for environmental sampling. He has multiple maps where he does sampling for the Butte and Anaconda areas where there's lots of heavy metals, and he's seen some interesting patterns that kind of let him know where to sample next. And I found this really cool map on USDA, and they used Montana as an example. And this is just a regular map of Montana, but it's broken out into all the different layers that people might be interested in. Roadways, different types of climate, where wells are located, where wetlands are located, satellite imagery, pretty much anything you could want to know about the land. And again, the layers are linked by that technical geocoding, and luckily there's been lots of people making maps all over the planet, and geocoding is pretty easy for us nowadays. It wasn't to begin with. But because of the geocoding link, if you have data in one layer, you can apply it to a different layer. The example I have here is they've layered floodplain on top of home ownership boundaries. And then you can ask the computer to select any properties that fall within the floodplain or even just intersect it at one point. And a lot of these calculations can be very helpful to governments. You might want to know how far away your clinic is to the nearest school, or you might want to, what's called a buffer. It's an area around a point or a line. Again, floodplains is a good example. If you have a river, you can set up a buffer and assume that 20 feet away from the river could be a dangerous place to put a home, or you could look at a pollution source and study a boundary 100 feet away and see if you can still detect pollution. One thing that as epidemiologists we do a lot is we convert point data and put it into polygon data. And that's so important that I'm going to go over that in the next slide. So this map is an example of crimes. Looks like San Francisco, if I remember right. So these, you could, consider these COVID cases, but these people were studying crimes. And what they've done is to aggregate all the points that fall within certain city boundaries. For us, it would probably be counties, but it looks like they're studying different neighborhoods or even different zip codes. And they've added up all the crimes that occur within that polygon. It would be a great way for San Francisco to decide where they're going to put their next police department or where they need to do other interventions. For epidemiologists, this is important because we want to keep patient data private. We don't want to give enough information where you could pick out somebody and identify that they have a certain condition. That's not legal and that's not ethical. So this is a way where you can look at disease trends across an area and not divulge who the cases are. You can just look at cases in total. But one thing that we often do for disease data is we look at not just how many cases there are, but how many cases per population density. If you're looking at a big area, you'd want to choose like how many cases per 100,000 people. But with Montana being not so dense, you might want to look at how many cases per 1,000 people. And that evens out, the dense areas like Billings compared to more rural locations like Sanders County. Sorry, I skipped ahead, but the one drawback of GIS, and it's the biggest drawback, is it is super complex. So this is the full expanded toolbar, and it takes, I did a 2-year program in ArcGIS, and I haven't used half of these things. It has a lot of functionality. It's been in existence from 1999, and people have done nothing but add to it different things that they need from the programs. But one good thing about ArcGIS is that you don't have to have all those packages. You can do smaller licenses. They're offering now these web-hosted programs where you don't have to have the program yourself on your computers because it eats up a lot of energy and data and memory. But they could host the computer and you could have your maps available securely just to people that you give the secure login information to. And again, ESRI has technical assistance groups that are specifically for tribal governments. And there were too many ArcGIS options for me to even begin. So I'm hoping that I can get a hold of this Jason Langley and maybe talk a little bit about what they recommend for tribal governments to start out with. But there are now competitors to ArcGIS, even though they're the biggest and best. There's easier systems that you might be interested in. Tableau is another data system that can also produce really great maps and dashboards and charts. You don't need to be a computer programmer. You can make charts that are just drag and drop, where you grab cases on one axis and then you plop down your communities on a different axis, and all of a sudden it makes a chart for you. You don't have to tell it to make a chart, it just does it, and then you can change how the chart looks. In this case also, they can grant you a secure web page where you can show your data to certain people that you may want to share this data. And it doesn't have to be disease data. It can be anything like, you know, how many people own land over 20 acres, or, you know, how many fire hydrants you might need for a certain area. Measurements like that. Maybe garbage collection. Maybe you notice that garbage collection is insufficient in a certain area. You could map that out and, you know, show it to your government and say, this is where we need resources now. It's very easy. I haven't used Tableau myself, but I've been in a lot of presentations, and it is amazingly slick, and I really like it. Another one that I'm less familiar with is called Power BI. It's very much like Tableau, where you can slide, you can drag and drop your information, and it will automatically create charts and maps and COVID dashboards if you like. And it works well with Office products like Excel. So if you already have a bunch of data in something like Excel, you might be interested in Power BI. And they also have a website for local governments to get more help. And I found these really great resources. I wasn't sure exactly what people would be interested in, but all of these are links, and if the links don't work, I can send them to you. The best practices for local governments, that was a federal brochure, and it's only about 3 pages long, but it's full of information and advice, like just advising you that it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort to initially set up a GIS program. It's a lot of data to get in there, but once your data is in there, it is easy to use, and you'll rely on it for a lot more than what you set it up to begin with. Esri has some really cool videos. The next 2 bullet points are for Esri videos. Those link to YouTube, and these are amazing things that tribes have done. One tribe, it was in the Southwest, I don't remember which tribe, but they had a lot of hiking trails that they wanted to advertise to the public. So they made a whole site where people can click on a map, and it brings up the hiking trail and how long it is and what they recommend you bring for the day. It was really cool. And then again, there's that link to Esri, where they have the group that helps tribal governments specifically. And that's all I have for you today, but anything that you would like, Jonathan, to know more about, I am happy to research.
Okay, yeah, that was a very great introduction PowerPoint.
Well, I'm glad it was helpful.
Yeah, really opened my eyes to what, you know, this program is really fascinating for, you know, tribal governments, like you said, because right now we're having and it's amazing you just brought it up, we're having problems with our garbage collection. And when you said that, I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. That's that's exactly what.
Okay.
But yeah, that's really amazing, and you know, and just to hear you say that, doing, you know, with 2 years experience, and you still are figuring out the complexities of the program, and you know, that's just fascinating to me, because you know, it's like a never-ending story with the program.
They just keep adding more things on, you know, because it's governments use it, but also like hydrogeologists use it to find underground water, and ecologists use it to track endangered species, and everybody wants different tools added. So that's why it's so ponderous. So it's hard to learn at first, but once you have some basics down, or you hire someone who can do it, then you can add in all those things. Like you need to rework a road, and you could ask the program to chart the next closest road to route people certain ways. And you can add, it will also add up things, like if you need to know, like I mentioned before, how many people own land over 20 acres, then you could add all that data together and find out exactly how much land that is. So that's what the state uses it for a lot, is they tax people at different rates depending on how much land they own. As soon as you're over 20 acres, your tax rates actually drop, which is interesting. And then they can really quickly figure out who has over 20 acres and just slot them into that tax bracket. So, things like taxation become a lot easier.
It's really fascinating. Man.
Yeah, and I would encourage you to look at those videos and just browse those websites. And every year, it looks like Esri holds a competition for tribes to submit the work that they've done on GIS, and it's really cool. Really beautiful work.
Oh, okay. Was it just recently that they,
Yeah, I didn't see one advertised for this year yet, but it looks like last year they held the competition somewhere in April.
Oh, okay.
And people do, use it for a lot of different things. I think someone was interested in like water sources. So the people who won this last time were the people who did the trails, and they did advertising to get more tourists to come and use their trails.
Oh, cool.
But the year before, I believe it was a woman who did water sources, I think to protect them, if I remember right. But interesting stuff for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. I'm gonna definitely check that out.
Sounds
And
great.
if the links don't work, I'll just send you an email. And
Yeah, please do, because I had a lot of fun looking at them myself. I thought, wow, this could be really helpful to people as long as they know about it and can access it. And ArcGIS is an expensive program, but if you are able to talk to them, they might be able to customize something that is not so expensive, not so complex.
Oh, okay.
Or, of course, you could look at the other programs, the Tableau and the Power BI, and find out if they're sufficient for your needs. Or I could help you. It was something that I wasn't clear on, and I didn't want to spend too much time on if I was looking up the wrong things.
Oh, yeah, no. To me, there's no such thing as too much knowledge or information.
That's really cool.
So, I just whatever is available, it just gets warped into my mind. So
That's great. That really is, because that's where people start to make connections, and they can, they become better problem solvers.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. If there's anything that I can do for you, please let me know. But that's all that I have for today.
Okay. Yeah, that was a great introduction. It opened the door to my mind. So now it'll be able to process the more complex sections much. I'm not where I'm so lost in the woods.
Right.
But yes, thank you, Erin.
Yeah, you bet. Oh, one thing just occurred to me that I know that we are so pushing that darn data dashboard, but if you use the function in there that where you would record the person's address, you can put an Excel chart into ArcGIS. You just have to use the geocoding to identify the address and pin it on the map. So it's not, once you've done it a few times, it's not difficult.
Oh, okay.
So you could, if you wanted to, you could link the two.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely I'll get in touch with my CHRs and CNAs,
Okay.
and once we get RN, I'll be able to open her eyes to this program. But yeah, I'll definitely get in touch with them and tell them the benefits and the cool features that this program presents. And then because next week I have a training for the Tabaloo
Yeah,
program.
I think you'll like that one too. It's really easy to use, as far as I can tell.
Okay,
Lots of
yeah.
just you put your information in, and then you just slide things over to compare different things. It's really cool.
Oh, nice. Yeah. So, and once I uh, once that meeting is over, I'll again get in touch with my CNAs and CHRs and discuss which program best fits their needs because
Okay.
these ladies are going to be the ones that are going to
Right.
processing this data. So I just want to be sure that whether it works for them works for me, and vice versa, just to make their lives easier with all the sacrifices they put up with every day. So if I could make lift a little load off their shoulders, hey, I'm all for it.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for your time, Jonathan.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Thank you, Erin, and you have a good day, and we'll talk to you later.
sounds good.
Bye bye.
Bye.